Welcome back. It's a visit which is being seen as quite a crucial one as Prime Minister Modi begins the first day of his meetings in a 3-day trip to the United States. So what are the key things on the agenda? Well, he's going to be addressing the United Nations General Assembly that is in session. He's going to be participating in a Quad meet, which is the first in-person meet that is going to be taking place since the pandemic, and he's also going to be conducting a bilateral meeting with President Joe Biden, again the first in-person meet of the two leaders since the pandemic. So it also comes at a very crucial time. It's in the backdrop of the developments in Afghanistan. China's aggression in the Indo-Pacific region continues to be part of the context, especially as we talk about the Quad. And of course, there has been a series of meetings today with global CEOs, 5 global CEOs. Some of them spoke after meeting Prime Minister Modi. Let's listen in.
Among the key topics that we talked about was, continued investment in innovation, because he certainly believes that technology is the way to help move things forward. Specifically, we talked about artificial intelligence and what might happen with artificial intelligence. We talked about creativity, the importance of creativity and how media, the ever-changing nature of media. We talked about online and the importance of startups. And in addition to that, we just talked about how, companies like Adobe can do more in India.
Many things are very relevant, I think, to what we think about the future of technology. We talk about the 5G and acceleration of 5G. We're talking about incredible opportunity to advance the industry not only domestically in India, but India as an export of technology as we think about the digital transformation enabled by 5G combined with the design in India. We talk about semiconductors, which is kind of an important, I think, topic of conversation. And we talk about the opportunity to continue to build an incredible mobile ecosystem that it is developing in India. Very pleased with the conversations, and we're very, very happy with everything we're doing together with India.
All right, so why all eyes are on this meeting is because this is the first time Prime Minister Modi is meeting Joe Biden in person after he won the election. And there's also a very crucial Quad meeting, which comes at a time when there is a new grouping between the Australia, the US and the UK. It's being called AUKUS. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but basically abbreviations of these 3 countries, which are going to join together for operations in the Indo-Pacific. It's got everyone a bit on edge, and presumably other Quad members, including India and Japan, are wondering why they've been left out of this new grouping. So a lot happening geopolitically. My colleague Nikunj Garg, who is in Washington right now covering the events there and the Prime Minister's trip, is getting us details of what to watch out for.
The Willard Hotel, which Braja may like to now move our camera towards, has played a very crucial and important role. This is a very important historic monument, so to say, in Washington D.C. Got burned during the Civil War. This is the new Willard Hotel, which was reconstructed after the fire that engulfed it during the Civil War years. This is sandwiched, so to say, effectively between the Capitol and the White House. So I am also sandwiched between these two places. On the right-hand side, where Braja can again move the camera, is the rear of the White House, and that is where the Prime Minister will have his bilateral meeting today in the later hours with the Vice President Kamala Harris in the Eisenhower Executive Hall. Other than that, most of his meetings are confined to the hotel. And of course, then tomorrow he goes to the White House for his bilateral summit with the president, whom also we saw arriving just now at the Capitol. So this is the place. The bulk of the Indian contingent is here. In the rear of this hotel, there's a security blockade, so there's nobody who can nobody can move around here. Around this place also the traffic has been closed. You can see the police cars on the main street. The traffic is only being allowed to move diagonally opposite in a direction, not in the direction of the hotel, or the road right in front of the hotel has also been completely blocked and cut off. Now that of course is for security reasons, but then because of the fact that there are important world leaders whose delegations, as you and I started to speak, the Australian delegation was actually walking out of the hotel. So they're all trooping in, trooping out, various small last minute adjustments that are required to be done before the top leaders meet and discuss issues of consequence, not only for the national security of that particular country, but in a larger realm, in the larger Indo-Pacific or a larger world realm. So security details, delegates, ministers, as you saw, Mr. Jaishankar,
former DIPP Secretary, and Jayant Dasgupta, former ambassador and former permanent representative of India to the WTO, joining us on the show. Gentlemen, I want to focus, and of course there will be a lot of talk about, the body language with Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris. It's a new administration, so we have to see what equations settle there, and all of that, of course, is important. But I want to focus a little bit, and let me start with Jayant Dasgupta, on whether any crucial issues in terms of trade will be touched upon in this meeting. So in the statement released earlier, improving bilateral trade was one of the topics on the agenda, and there are a lot of prickly issues there right now between the India and the United States. Do you think that there will be any deep dive into these, or will it be a broader meet and greet kind of trip as far as the outcome is concerned?
Thank you. I think the Prime Minister, from all the reports, is meeting President Biden for just about an hour. And on top of the agenda is, I think, the situation in Afghanistan, our common stand on terrorism, China's growing assertiveness, and what we can do together. So I think security and cooperation will take top billing in the meeting, followed by definitely talks about the Quad, because that is also of a piece with our joint initiative to have peace in the Indo-Pacific and globally. Then we come to this issue of containing China and this threat that we have about having too many things coming out of China by way of components and intermediate products, and the world industry's over-reliance on China. For instance, the semiconductor shortage has hit our auto industry, and globally as well, many industries have been hit very badly. So I think that is going to also figure in the talk. Then there are two more very important issues. One is about COVID-19, the vaccine shortage which the developing world is facing, and how can India and the US contribute jointly to ameliorate the hardship being faced by the developing world. Finally, it is about climate change. After that, if there is time left, perhaps they can pick up on one or two issues relating to trade. But I think the most important thing about trade is that these issues have been festering for quite long, and I don't think they can be really resolved at the level of heads of state. They will have to be resolved at a much lower level between negotiators, and then between the USTR and the Commerce Minister.
Fair point. Ajay Dua, what will you be looking out for? I mean, of course, President Biden and Prime Minister Modi have communicated, spoken, been on calls several times by now, but this will be the first in-person meeting. And do you think it will be an important one in terms of establishing a coordination between the two leaders?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I think, as Jayant mentioned, there is not going to be much emphasis from what has been reported and what's coming along as the kind of agendas of the meetings between President Biden and Mr. Modi, and Mr. Modi and Mrs. Kamala Harris later today itself. What was said was science and technology and certain other issues would be discussed with the Vice President by Mr. Modi, whereas the broader issues of strategy, peace, terrorism, Afghanistan, Quad will be discussed with the President. So I think some amount of delineation has already been done, and that's known to the Indian delegation as well as the Prime Minister. Having said that, I think this is going to be a meeting where first time meeting, a limited time, apart from the Quad meeting where all the four leaders will be meeting. It will be a 1 hour meeting between the President and the Prime Minister. So there, no details I expect, and no certainly trade or investment issues will really come. It is going to be three things which are of concern today to the President of the United States. One, China. Quad is an important aspect of it. And Quad's working, as you know, is being expanded much more than was expected. Earlier, when President Biden came, we were not willing to talk about Quad because it was something which originated in Mr. Trump's time. Within a month, he held a virtual meeting with first the foreign ministers held a meeting amongst themselves, and by June, the heads of these four governments had met virtually. So now he's sold on this idea, if I might say. AUKUS is a purely defense alliance, and defense alliance between three countries who have been supporting one another in wars. Australia, UK fought in Afghanistan on behalf of or along with the US. That's not the position vis-a-vis Japan and India. So in Quad, it is certainly containing China, what will be provocation, but Science and Technology Working Group has been set up. There is a working group even on climate change position, which is, I think, the second group which the Quad set up. So there are three groups which are looking at broadening the relationship, and I think some progress would be made in each one of them. But I think AUKUS will remain, and AUKUS will remain as purely a defense alliance between these three nations. Finally, I would say that in this particular meeting, there is going to be frank, first-time person-to-person talk after Prime Minister's visit to the US exactly 2 years ago in September 2019, the Howdy Modi visit, where Mr. Modi was probably seen to be his proximity to the then president was supposed to be very significant. So this will be a good opportunity for Mr. Modi to get to know him, let him know what else is uppermost in his mind, and at the same time, it will do well if Prime Minister Modi were to say, please do the next, I am willing to host the next Quad meeting, whether it's in 22, it will be probably in 2022 in India, so that they get to know one another and interact more frequently.
Yep, that's an important point, that the last in-person visit was Howdy Modi, which was seen as a lot of bonhomie between Modi and Trump, and of course Trump was shown the door, Biden has won, and it's a new equation which needs to be settled now. I just want your view, Mr. Dasgupta, on AUKUS, the Australia, UK and US combine, which is a military combine. Now, some countries are miffed. We know France is miffed because they ended up losing out on a massive submarine deal from Australia, because Australia is now leaning on its other partners, the UK and the US, to provide these things. So we know that has caused a bit of consternation. Isn't there a bit of an overlap with the Quad, in the sense both deal with security in the Indo-Pacific region?
Yes, I think there is indeed a great deal of overlap. There is one thing which we need to bear in mind, and that is that the Australians are going to get the technology to have nuclear-powered fast submarines. Now, we have one such submarine which we have got from the Russians on lease basis, and we are desperately in need of many more such submarines. The Florida-class SSN submarine, which is likely to be, provided, the technology is to be provided to Australians, that can remain underwater for 13, 14 years without the need to resurface, apart from, a crew change and for picking up food. So that is the kind of longevity it can have underwater, and it will be required to protect the larger intercontinental ballistic missile carrying submarines, which also are nuclear powered, but which are much slower in terms of speed, and which are larger vessels. So we also need, if we think of jointly countering China and its growing whitewater, blue water fleet, we will need to have this technology. We are, in fact, trying to build it on our own, which will probably see the light of the day in 2032, 2033, thereon. So France is one. Only 6 countries have this kind of technology. So it is, the AUKUS is perhaps, one may say, it could indicate an extension of the Quad membership to the UK. As you all know, there is a Five Eyes intelligence, signal intelligence grouping of the US, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand.
Right.
Canada and New Zealand, of those two, do not have nuclear-powered submarines. So it is likely that this is a logical extension, and the UK will also at some stage come into the Quad, because the UK also has
all right, I will have to end here. So I'm running out of time. I will have to end here, but thank you for putting into perspective what we're going to see and cover possibly tomorrow, as well as those meetings get underway. And tomorrow will be the UNGA speech. Prime Minister Modi will be giving a speech at the United Nations General Assembly as well. He will be meeting President Biden. We'll be covering and analyzing all of those events tomorrow on the show as well. But for tonight, that's all we have. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back here tomorrow, same time, same place.